Hello, this is Val, and our story for right now is called The Frog Prince, and it's written by the Brothers Grimm. One fine evening, a young princess put on her bonnet and clogs and went out to take a walk by herself in the woods. And when she came to a cool spring of water, with a rose in the middle of it, she sat herself down and rested for a while. Now, she had a golden ball in her hands, which was her favorite toy, and she was always tossing it up into the air and catching it as it fell. After a time, she threw it up so high that she missed catching it as it fell, and the ball bounced away and rolled on the ground until at last it fell into the water of the spring. The princess looked into the spring after her ball, but it was very, very deep, so deep that she could not see the bottom. She began to cry and said, "Alas, if I could only get my ball again, I would give all my fine clothes and jewels and everything I have in this world." When she was speaking, a frog peeped his little head out of the water and said, "Princess, why do you weep so bitterly?" "Alas," said she, "what can you do for me, nasty frog? My golden ball has fallen into the spring." The frog said, "I don't want your pearls and jewels and fine clothes, but if you love me and let me live with you and eat from your golden plate and sleep on your bed, I will bring you your ball again." "What nonsense," thought the princess. "This silly frog is talking. He can never even get out of the spring to visit me, though he may be able to get the ball from me. Therefore I will tell him he shall have what he asks." So she said to the frog, "Well, if you bring me my ball, I will do all that you ask." Then the frog put his head down and dived deep, deep, deep into the water. And after a little while he came up again with the ball in his mouth and threw it onto the edge of the spring where the princess was sitting. As soon as the young princess saw her ball, she ran to pick it up, and she was so overjoyed to have it in her hands again that she never even thought of the frog and ran home as fast as she could. The frog called after her, "Stay, princess, and take me with you as you've said." But she didn't hear a word, and she certainly didn't stop. The next day, just as the princess had sat down to dinner, she heard a strange noise, tap, tap, plash, plash, as if something was coming up the marble staircase, and soon afterwards there was a gentle knock at the door, and a little voice cried out and said, "Open the door, my princess dear, open the door to thy true love here, and mind the words that thou and I had said by the fountain cool in the greenwood shed." Then the princess ran to the door and opened it, and there she saw the frog, whom she had quite forgotten. At this sight she was sadly frightened and shut the door as fast as she could and came back to her seat. The king, her father, seeing that something had frightened her, asked her what was the matter. "There's a nasty frog," she said, "at the door, and he lifted my ball for me out of the spring this morning. I told him he should live with me here, and thinking he could never get out of the spring. But there he is at the door, and he wants to come in." While she was speaking, the frog knocked again at the door and said, "Open the door, my princess dear, open the door to thy true love here, and mind the words that thou and I said by the fountain cool in the greenwood shade." Then the king said to the young princess, "As you have given your word, so must you keep it. So go and let him in." She did so, and the frog hopped into the room and straight on, tap, tap, plash, plash, from the bottom of the room right up to the top, till he came up close to the table where the princess sat. "Pray lift me upon the chair," he said to the princess, "and let me sit next to you." As soon as she had done this, the frog said, "Put your plate nearer to me, that I may eat out of it." This she did, and when he had eaten as much as he could, he said, "Now I'm tired. Carry me upstairs and put me into your bed." And the princess, though very unwilling, took him up in her hand and put him upon the pillow of her bed, where he slept all night long. As soon as it was light, the frog jumped up, hopped downstairs, and went out of the house. "Now then," thought the princess, "at last he's gone, and I shall be troubled with him no more." But she was mistaken. For when the night came again, she heard the same tapping at the door. And the frog came once more, and he said, "Open the door, my princess dear. Open the door to thy true love here. And mind the words that thou and I said, by the fountain cool in the greenwood shed." And when the princess opened the door and the frog came in, he slept upon her pillow as before till the morning broke. And the third night he did the same. But when the princess woke up the following morning, she was astonished to see, instead of a frog, it was a handsome prince gazing at her with the most beautiful eyes she had ever seen, standing at the head of her bed. He told her that he had been enchanted by a spiteful fairy, who had changed him into a frog, and that he had been fated so to abide until a princess would take him out of the spring, let him eat from her plate, and sleep upon her bed for 3 nights. "You," said the prince, "you have broken his cruel charm, and now I have nothing to wish for, that you would go with me to my father's kingdom, where I marry you and love you as long as you shall live." The young princess, you might be sure, was not long in saying yes to all of this. And as they spoke, a brightly colored coach drove up, with 8 beautiful horses, decked with plumes of feathers and a golden harness. And behind the coach rode the prince's servant, faithful Henrique, who had bewailed the misfortunes of his dear master during the enchantment, so long and so bitterly, that his heart had well nigh burst. They then took leave of the king, and got into the coach with 8 horses, and all set out, full of joy and merriment, for the prince's kingdom, which they reached safely, and there they lived happily a great many years. The end. And if this is your bedtime story, then sweet dreams, God bless, and good night.